Welcome to the Pioneer Mind Podcast, kind of the first shot out of the cannon. And we're going to have a good time exploring this subject of a pioneer and the mindsets that go along with that and how people make choices. They choose tough things sometimes when they don't have to find adventure maybe or whatever is lacking in their life. They decide to move from where they are to some place they don't know. And I just am encouraged by people like that and the fearlessness in which they approach things, and have always been attracted to that and have lived my life that way in many ways. Um, but I really want to delve into this subject, use this as a backdrop to interview CEOs of oil field, mining, different companies, farmers, third generation farmers, AI, data center developers, and really the philosophies driving these things and whether they're good or bad. We're going to ask those questions. It's going to be a fascinating time. And I think there's just tons of content and could do this the rest of my life and never really scratch the surface on this subject and its importance in our lives personally, pioneering our own lives and pioneering in the culture and the new things that are coming up, replacing the old, because now everything old is no good. So, which is not true. So institutions and things are being rejected and challenged. Things that have been around for thousands of years that have worked perfectly are being told they're no good. So the new things, there's wonderful things going on. There's no doubt in the new pioneer spirit that's happening in many, many areas. But there's also old things that are wonderful and should be reestablished and actually sustained. So just to join us for this. You're going to enjoy it. We're going to have long form interviews and just discussions, and I'll be learning, everybody be learning, and I'm just excited to get this started. So thanks for joining us. I wanted to start this first episode today with a story that's kind of led me to where I'm at today. Um, I had gotten hired by a company in Kansas City, and they it was just right out of college, so I really didn't have any experience, and they had hired me. I always interview well, and really no limits to where I could have gone, I guess, and many things with the corporate world. But what I discovered is I hated the corporate world. I got hired by this company. They'd issued me a car. I was going to be doing work within the insurance industry, inspecting large plants, and for safety issues or whatever, that kind of thing. So they issued me a car. I had a two-state territory, and I'd gotten trained a little bit, set up, count. I was going out on a training with my manager at the time, and his name was Dick Wishman, which is, I'm not making a joke. He was 100% pretty accurate in terms of his first name. I, we were meeting outside the hotel the next morning for our first day of training, and I come out to the car, and in Kansas, it's hot at 8 in the morning, 7:30 in the morning. There's dew everywhere. It's very humid. You're sweating already before you even get to the car to get the air conditioning going. Well, the car is covered with a dew on the windshields and around the car. So I get in the car. He gets in with me. I turn the car on, and I flipped the wipers, gave him a turn, and blew the dew off, kind of got myself set, get ready to put it in reverse, and he proceeds to tell me, "So, do you think this car is ready to operate?" And I sat there and I'm kind of confused, and I go, "Yeah, I think we're ready to roll. Where do you want to head to first?" That's all I'm thinking. And he proceeded to tell me the safety issues with the dew on the corners of the windows that the wipers didn't hit, and that I should get out with a rag of some sort and clean off those spots for visibility, and that it was dangerous to operate the car without clearing those spots. Even after I had wiped it clean, and you can see very clearly through the window with no issue. Um, this started a sequence of events that didn't end well for me. Uh, we got into it. I pretty much told him they issued me this car, and I think I'm fine with the way this is going, and I'm not doing that. And then he proceeded to come back to me. Well, that's not a very good attitude. You're not very teachable. You're not very trainable. And I said, you're being ridiculous. We went back and forth. And then finally, at the end of it, he says, well, maybe this just isn't going to work out. And I go, you know what? I don't think it is. I said, let's go park this car and we'll call it good. So I didn't have the job much more than 10 days and had gotten fired. And truth be told, in that year, 1990, I had 11 W-2s in 1 year. I'd gotten 11 jobs and removed, fired, or quit 11 jobs in 1 year. And so obviously this starts raising red flags in your own life. Like, what am I dealing with here? What's the problem? Why am I so unhireable or uh, um, the inability to stick with something? And I kind of, obviously took it to heart that I have a problem. There was something in me that I couldn't overcome. And I was really questioning myself and my own character. My wife was very frustrated, and we'd had a newborn, and I wasn't keeping a job. And it wasn't about my work or my work ethic. I always showed up on time, always did every task ever asked of me. One job, a couple jobs really, was a manager who was totally threatened by me being in the office. I was very decisive, hard worker, and would make decisions without asking him, and it drove him nuts. And even if it was the right decision, which it was, I was just making a common sense assumption and would make decisions, made them very threatened. They hated it. So I didn't last long. They pushed me out, that kind of thing. Then there was other things that were just my fault in terms of just not being able to take any direction or be treated with disrespect. Really, is what it was. Is I just felt if I was being condescended to or being treated with disrespect, I was out the door. I wasn't even going to participate in this game. And again, I don't necessarily know I saw that before this experience. I've always been a team player, sports, football, basketball, college, always been a team player, encouraging. I was really a happy warrior. Always have been, would have been described by that anyone that ever knew me. And then when it came down to this time when I had to kind of be involved with the real world, I guess, in terms of corporate world, and the way they would treat you and talk to you. And I just didn't want to be a drone and an automaton or whatever. And I just felt like I was just being completely disrespected, which I hated. And I instantly reacted to it and did not know where that came from. So 11 jobs in 1 year leads me to one job in Kansas. I ended up with a degree from a private school, one of the top 10 schools in the country. I taken symbolic logic, physics, economics, sociology. You wouldn't believe the education I got, a classical Christian education, 4 years of Latin, all this poured into my head, philosophy, Socrates, you name it, psychology. I was getting bombarded with an amazing education. So I get out and I'm unemployable. So it was really challenging for me. And I really felt like a failure, to be truthful. I really struggled with that quite hard. And I felt bad for Kathy, my wife, just that putting up with this guy trying to grow up and mature at this age and had to figure out himself. And she's, trusting me to take care of the family and lead in whatever way I can. So I felt for her, and there's no doubt that that was not right at the time. But again, I had to go through these things. I had to sort out some things, and again, it's led up to a great life, blessed. Really, it's an amazing situation that we've gotten ourselves into, and spoiled rotten is the best way I can describe it, without the rotten, hopefully. But the deal is that led me to a job with a guy named Dave Dow, who ran a Goodyear tire shop. He had another location in Fowler, Kansas, a small little town. He took me in almost like a son in some ways. He was super soft spoken, not uh, and not any kind of guy that was just going to treat you with their disrespect. He was the lowest guy at the shop. He would treat them as if he was going to serve them. He was really had this idea of leadership as serving from the bottom, and was so kind and so generous and so patient and teaching and really he must have saw something in me, because within the first week or two he's got me the keys to the night work and splitting profits with me at the time. if I'd go out on an oil field rig and, fixing tires or whatever needed to be done on different trucking, that kind of stuff. He'd split the profits with me. He treated me good. He didn't micromanage me, didn't thumb me, didn't treat me with disrespect. We would have discussions at the end of the day that were just totally friends. And again, wasn't making a lot of money, but it was the best job I ever had, to be truthful. To this day, I can point to him as setting a foundation in me that calmed me down and helped me start thinking about how I wanted to live this life. Well, at this specific shop, I was doing a lot of truck work. We're on the convergence of I-15 and 93 and some other route. Anyway, a lot of trucks come through. And what was happening is I would meet these drivers and sometimes see them multiple times over a period of months because they'd come back through, make a stop, and I'm getting to know these drivers. And then one day a dry van pulls in, and he's literally doing something criminal at the time. Actually, he was trying to sell Kenmore dryers out of the back of his truck to get some extra money for fuel or whatever he was trying to do. It was totally a thievery thing, and and we're all just kind of staring at him, but I started talking to him, and I was asking, well, so where'd you pick this up? Oh, I picked it up in Topeka, Kansas, and oh, okay. So you call the plant there and you arrange freight with them. Oh, no, I go through a third party brokerage, and they control all the freight in and out of Kenmore. Kenmore doesn't do any of their own logistics. And I go, really? So I just started asking about that, talking to this driver. I did some research, bought a book on how to start a freight brokerage, and it planted the seed in my head as I can work from anywhere. There's no borders. I can work internationally. I don't have to have inventories. I just started thinking of all the opportunities. I could do this with my eyes closed. All I have to do is really communicate information accurately. And again, the hard part is getting clients to use you at that time. But anyway, he planted the seed. I read a book, believe it or not, and took off back to Montana from Kansas, started my brokerage in the Bitterroot, and sat down at a kitchen table with a phone book. I got my ICC license, applied for that. I self-insured through a surety. Instead of a surety bond, I put up a bond at the bank and dedicated that to the ICC bond that was required. So I self-insured. And I started at the kitchen table with a phone book and just started looking up companies, Alpine Log Homes, whatever manufacturing was in the area. I didn't even have the view of looking at steel in Utah or pipe out of Oregon or California or whatever. I was still looking right in Montana what I could haul. And it was so interesting. I knew no language. I knew nothing. I'd talked to a company. Alpine Log Homes is one of them. Well, we need to haul logs out of British Columbia. We need log trucks with log bunks and a headache rack, that can haul 60 footers. And I'm like, okay, so I'm with a pen writing down headache rack, log bunks, because I don't know anything about it. Step deck with a step deck riser or whatever, all the different language, super B, we need a super A, whatever, a truck and a pup, tarped, untarped. I didn't even know anything. And I was such a knucklehead. And but I just jumped in both feet, and it was really tough going early on. I just couldn't get hardly an answer. I didn't really have assets under my control in terms of trucking companies. I was trying to call trucking companies to get on their list to be used. And then I'm calling customers to see if they need freight. And again, I didn't know the language on either side. And it was terrible. I felt terrible, but I was writing it down as fast as I could and would write just go research what those words meant, what they were doing, what kind of truck. I'd drive by trucking companies, go sit at truck stops when they're fueling up, and I would look at the types of equipment that was coming in and out so I could identify it. So I was learning as I went. And again, it sounds crazy, but just winging it was the best way I could think to do it. I didn't have time to fool around, and I wanted to really grow this and have the opportunity that I had found before me. So I really didn't have much work initially, the first few months, 5-6 months. So I'm working at night, building fence, trimming trees for a guy who is member of the family of the Hamilton Beach family. You've probably heard of those products, and very wealthy family. And he just took me under his wing as well, let me do work, build little bridges across streams and fence for his cows. He had a ranch. And so I was doing that in the evenings and then doing my trucking during the day. I made $6,000 my first year, 24 my second year, and then 86 my third. And I thought I was cranking it out. I was going nuts and thought it was just the most amazing thing to see it grow like that. But this guy was a big part of me being able to keep putting groceries on the table. And we lived pretty frugally. We weren't in debt, so we were able to get by. So early on, I was pioneering something, I guess is the right word. I was leaving behind this idea of a job or what my college had trained me into, to be a corporate drone, which I couldn't stand the idea of it, to choose this really hard thing, really basically starving to death. And again, my wife, Kathy, was a big part of that. She was jumping off the cliff with me and had no issue in some ways with what I was doing. She was trusting me with it. And again, that's an amazing thing for any man to have, is that you can have a partner that's wanting me to go for it. So it was pretty important. So one of my first customers I ever got, I was getting some tacos at a taco joint in Hamilton, Montana. And the waitress visiting with me, asking me what I do, because in small towns, who's this new guy? They know you're new. They know you're not from there. So they're trying to figure it out so they can gossip all over town about you. And here's the deal. She says, well, what do you do? I tell her, oh, I'm a freight brokerage. I'm, building this business for trucking and transportation around the country, this and that. And new, but always looking for customers. And she says, well, you should talk to my husband. He's got a manufacturing facility in British Columbia and has a terrible time with trucking. And I said, oh, really? Well, how do I meet him? She goes, well, he's right over your shoulder. He's eating tacos at the table behind you. So I turn around, introduce myself to Dan Gale. And next thing you know, it's Bitterroot Forest Products. It's Skookumchuck, BC. And he's giving me freight to work on. I'd gotten a few loads. And so, really, he ended up being a customer of mine for about 10, 11 years. Amazing. Shipped product for them each and every week for those years. But what one of the funny stories is early on, like in that first week, he had a load going to, I want to say it was Tennessee, Brentwood, Tennessee, I believe. And he goes, I got a load going out there. I got a quote right now for $3,500. If you can beat that, you can have the load. So I start calling the trucking companies I'd been introducing myself to. So I called Salmons and Truckers Express and, all these different companies. So Salmon says, hey, yeah, we got a truck that would be interested in that. It's just south of there. We're not too far. We could be in there in an hour and load. And I said, well, what do you want to get it done? And they said, $2,300. I go, okay. So I go back to Dan. I said, Dan, I can get that done for $2,600. And like a fool, when I knew he'd already given me a number of $3,500, I should have maybe created a little bit better margin. But I just wanted to do a good job for him. So I added $300, $2,600. And he goes, okay, sounds good. Send him in. Truck goes in, loads tarps, gone on its way to Tennessee, crosses the border, got all the customs work done, no problem. And then the next day he says, he's asked, and later on he says, did you know that the trucking company I was talking to at 3,500 was Salmon's Trucking, the very truck you sent in for 2,600? And what that tells you about the ability of competition to really change the world. And and it's all perception. The trucking company thinks I have assets available to me in the hundreds, if not thousands of trucks. And so they're giving me the best deal and offering the customer, because they know maybe they're the only truck on their radar, the worst deal. So it's just fascinating how those things open my mind greatly to business and logistics and all those kind of things. Another thing the trucking company thing taught me was I created basically like a top 10 list of things on how to operate. And number 3 was to tell the truth even when it hurts you. I had a customer down in south of Missoula that would buy logs from Dan, and I would ship them down there on a Super A. And his name was Charlie. He lived in the Philippines part of the year and then would operate in Montana building log homes down in Darby. And first time I ever talked to him, he accused me of being a liar. I go, hello? And he goes, you're just a liar too. And I go, and I was like flabbergasted, sat there for about 10 seconds, not sure what to say. And I just said, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, you're in the trucking industry. You're all liars. You just lie all the time. Every word out of your mouth is a lie. And he's just giving it to me. He doesn't even know me. He's giving it to me. And what I found out is telling the truth, when it hurts you, you never lose a customer. In trucking, I learned about integrity in many ways in terms of the worst things. I could tell you stories about trucks not showing up. The driver takes off with his girlfriend. He has a load on with a crane waiting at something like $500 an hour. I mean, this is over and over. The challenges in that industry is unbelievable. And what he was saying wasn't untrue. There's a lot of lying, and because the trucking is meant to let you down. There's failure in trucks, wheels, tires. So, customs brokers aren't ready with their paperwork, so the truck's held up. Uh, Whatever, DOT, there's a million factors going on, and there's all kinds of things going wrong. So you're always calling with updates. You're always calling with problems, possibly, or good things happening. But a lot of times people misrepresent just to cover themselves. One of the things I learned is tell the truth, even when you think it will hurt you. And what I have found is customers go, oh, okay, great. Thanks for letting us know. We'll make another arrangement here. We'll be ready for it when he gets here tomorrow, right? Tomorrow? Yeah, most likely tomorrow. So I've never had a customer rip me for telling the truth or threaten to get rid of me for telling the truth. And I learned from Charlie to not be a liar, to tell the truth when it hurts me. And to be honest with you, that's carried me through everything I've ever done ever since. And it's a philosophy of approaching problems and everything with as much truth as you can and what you know at the time. Sometimes you don't have all the information, but the truth of it is you need to call within 30 seconds. I'd get a call, there's a failure in the trucking system. He's going to be 4 hours late. He's going to be a day late or whatever. You don't even hesitate. You literally pick up that phone, and with 30 seconds, you are on the phone with the customer telling them exactly what's happening. And what happens is down the road, they believe when you're telling it, it's all okay. Now they believe every word you're saying. So it's so important. So those are some of the lessons I learned in that trucking. And but what happened with the trucking is that uh, the government comes along, and now my little old freight brokerage is a threat to the big boys, and they're just basically lobbying me right out of business with surety bonds of $1 million. Again, I had done very well with shipping pipe and steel, and had a great little business working all over the United States and even shipping to Japan, in and out of Canada. Had a great little business, but the politics of the day was the big boys were shoving us out. I was being called to become an agent, bring my book of business in. You're not going to make it. You're not going to be able to do the financial stress test that we're going to put on you. And so I was getting pressured out. And at the same time, at that time I was taking 300 phone calls a day and emails on the list, and customs brokers, and you got 10 to 12 pieces of paperwork per load, and I'm doing hundreds of loads, and I'm just killing myself, and I'm starting to hate it, and starting to get frustrated. And at the same time, had some situations where people weren't paying their bills, and those kind of stressors just make you stop liking something. But so I got into this idea of I had a customer call and said, hey, you haul logs, can you get me a load of logs? And I said, yeah, I probably could. So I called a couple of my logging friends that I'd hauled for, and I needed a set of house logs for a log home, and they needed to have this much sweep, this much crook, bow, spiral was 1 in 10. They need to be 60 footers, dead dry on the stump, and on and on and on. Essentially, these are like perfect logs, like gun barrels right out of the woods, dry on the stump. They don't go through a vacuum kiln or anything like that. They're not processed. They're just literally perfect right on the stump. And that's what the house log industry wants. And so I do this load, and he says, hey, I need 2 more. And next thing you know, and I'm making good income on each one of these. and I start getting the idea I can switch gears, which I did. And next thing you know, I got a full on program of over 1,200 builders in my program that I was emailing availability for inventories. And I was doing that every month. I had a server. So I was sending out these updates. I had builders buying from Wisconsin, Michigan, Tennessee, Texas, going to Texas almost every day. The Bitterroot had 74 log home companies from Missoula to Sula, which is just about 110 miles. It's not that big, but there's Log Home Central is really where that was. And so I started serving that industry, and then I had the logistics back down with the trucking. The only headwinds I ran into were when 2008 hit, I literally got my butt handed to me. Um, I was buying logs as far north as Prince Rupert and Tappan, BC, in the north, bringing them down from Prince George, rail into our yard. We had a rail site. Um, we were doing anything we could to get logs in at that time because we were shipping 6 to 7 loads a day, just cranking them out for these log home projects all over the country. Cabela's, Bass Pro, they had builders that in my program that built and shaped product for their stores. As you see, if you go into a Cabela's and see logs, most likely those are ours if it's an older store. And so I'm I'm doing this whole process of developing this business. I loved it. I love the handcrafting. I got to tour Kelsey Grammer's house and George Bush's house and see these just works of art. I just loved the industry, loved the builders. It was just a totally different game than trucking in terms of honesty, and they wanted quality. I want quality. It was just a great match. And what I discovered in 2008 that it could go away pretty quick. Uh, most people, some people didn't feel it at all. I had a guy at church who asked me how business was, and I'm telling him, well, I'm getting my butt handed to me. I was shipping 7 loads a day in September, and I won't ship 2 loads over the next 2 or 3 years, which I didn't tell him that, but it just really dropped off to the point of zero when Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, uh, the money's pulled back, Home Depot stopped buying. You wouldn't believe it. So it literally went to zero, stayed there. And I've got equipment, log loaders, link belts, all kinds of equipment, and just really a challenging time. I had a guy that owed me quite a large sum who ended his life in January 2009. And literally in that time, I thought the world was against me and trying to destroy me. And I really got quite down and depressed, and like I'm a failure, like I should have seen this coming, which nobody saw it coming. Um, so it was really kind of a fascinating time, and really tough on my wife and family because our lives changed drastically. We had to really kind of sort things out, redirect. And at that time, we had one kid just getting ready to go to college. The stock market had crashed. So savings for college was pretty much toast. And we're really good about saving and investing at that time. And none of that worked out. Again, that was all, it's just one thing after another just kept kicking me in the teeth, and really a challenging thing. So I ended up going out to Minnesota to a Wells Fargo 3-day event talking about energy. And I was just looking for something else to do. I didn't want a job, and the job is just over broke. So I have no interest in that. I don't want to be treated like crap, like I told you earlier. And I go out to this energy conference, and the basic premise is they're shoving wind and solar down our throat, but they're not the future. The future is coal, gas, and oil, and it will be until these others don't have to be subsidized anymore. All the stuff I learned there. So I come home, I start getting some ideas. So I learned about some of the products they needed. Uh, bentonite was is a product that's used in oil field drilling quite a bit. And so I started approaching mining companies, American Gilsonite, uh, different bentonite companies, whatever I could, and just say, hey, I'm going to be a free salesman. I'll start marketing your products. And, if I can get a wholesale number to leave me some margin, I will start, uh, promoting your products to this network of people that I'm going to develop, which I did. And I basically worked for 3 years without an order from 2009 to 2012. I would get up in the morning at 5 or so, 6, worked till 8. And then I did take a job at that time with Titan Machinery, which was a blessing. So I was selling machinery during the day, and then I come home at night, eat dinner, go back outside, begin researching companies, finding the buyers, the purchasers, the CEOs, what they did, what kind of programs where they were operating, the Haynesville, the Permian, what natural gas, were they drilling for oil, learning all that kind of stuff. So I was reaching out saying, hey, do you need anything? I represent a separate company for bentonite or gilsonite or whatever. It's these drilling products. And again, I started having conversations. I started getting in the door. I even started getting bids like, hey, bid this, and I wouldn't get it because I wasn't even close. And what I had is a fellow by the name of Bill Dobbs came alongside me. What I found out about the oil field is he says, Mark, it's a small club. There's only 2,000 people making decisions for the whole industry, maybe for the world. And so everyone else is just running around hauling trucks, hauling water, hauling chemical, but they're not a decision maker to be had. I used to go out to the Bakken or try to call the Bakken and, oh, you got to call Houston, call this guy in Houston, call this guy in Dallas, call this guy in Houston. So what you find is that Texas is the center of the universe for oil field and decision making. So he pointed me in that direction, and that really helped. He came alongside in a really positive way and saw good things in me and was introducing me around and getting me into the club, I guess, is really basically it. Is because if you're not in, you're not going to sell anything. So he stands beside me on that, and he works for he's the vice president of sales for American Gilsonite. Gilsonite's a product mined in 3 places: Utah, Iran, and Colombia. It's very rare, but it's used extensively across the oil field. It's a lost circulation material. So anyway, it allows me to sell for him. I'm bringing products to him. I'm quoting things, but not getting them. And then a company called Weatherford, which many of you might know Weatherford. They'd be on par with Halliburton, Baker Hughes, in 130 countries, every continent. They're just everywhere. At that time, they had a fluids division, and they said, quote, 6 million pounds of gilsonite per year to us. And I go, okay. So I quoted it. He gave me a price of 38. I put it 41 on it, so I'm making $3 a bag. On and on. And we get down this process. They accept it. So I'm working with Weatherford, and I'm this guy in the middle of nowhere, Montana, pretending to be something. I didn't even know the language. It's the same thing with the trucking. I jumped in both feet, didn't know chemistry, ion transfer, pH, viscosity, whatever, all the things they're looking at to control these muds, the temperatures, to clean out the drill tilings at the end, and to keep the drill bit cool, and annualized pressures, and on stuff, all this stuff that I've learned since, and it's been very much a blessing. But one of the early things that I was encouraged to read was this book, and it's the Bible in the oil field, basically. So I read this book from cover to cover. I use it all the time to look up stuff because I don't still know all the language. I'll get an engineer on the phone and starts talking. I'll tell him, just slow down, man. I don't know what you're saying. And so they're funny about it, but they teach you, And I just had to kind of get in there and start learning. And again, the learning curve on the oil field was really quite big, in the sense of I was just shocked at how technical it was and difficult. And I just came away with this idea that these people are literally geniuses. The problems they got to solve on a daily basis on a well they've drilled to, say, 25,000 feet or 6,000 feet in the dark, going through different geology, different temperatures, all the challenges that they have to do to watch. It's amazing the amount of technology that's involved in the oil field to get gasoline to the customer, or get oil to whatever customer. It's an amazing investment, and an investment of just genius people. One of the other books I read was So You Want to Be a Mud Engineer, which I didn't want to be a mud engineer, but this was a book written by a guy that actually works for Geofluids. Geofluids is one of the customers of mine. I love them, and they've treated me very good. but this industry tries to teach all the time, and it's not one that wants you to be in the dark. They want you to understand so you know what they're dealing with. So it's been great that way. So I worked for 3 years, no orders. I get this order from Weatherford to Bill Dobbs. Bill Dobbs asked me one day, then a few days later, because I never disclosed who I was selling to. He goes, "Well, can I ask who is it? It's buying 6 million pounds of gilsonite a year." And I said, "Well, it doesn't matter to me. I'll tell you. I trust you. It's Weatherford." And he goes, "Oh my." And I go, "What?" He goes, "Hold on," puts me on speakerphone. I can hear him, his footsteps as he walked across his office. And I hear his window go, "Ee-er, ee-er." He's opening a window like that's on one of those that rolls open. And he takes a tennis ball and he says, "I got a tennis ball in my hand." And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "I just threw it out the window." And I go, "Okay." He goes, "I just hit Weatherford's office. They are right next to each other." And I said to him, "Then why wouldn't they just call you? What's the deal with that? Why wouldn't you just call them?" And he goes, "Two things." He said, "First of all, they don't like us very much. We don't get along very well. And we're the only place in town to get gilsonite, so they probably didn't want to buy direct from us just because they don't like us. And the second of all, we're all lazy." He goes, the whole oil field's over 70, and we no young people coming in, and we've been doing it forever. We know everybody. We feel like we know everything, and we're partly just lazy." And I thought that was interesting. So it was really another eye opener for me, is to never ignore an opportunity and keep going, because you never know how it'll work out. But that was the start. And again, that was 2012. I'm 13, 14 years in now on this new venture, and no regrets. I've absolutely loved it. And in a sense have been able to pioneer three different things over my career, really all doing the same work, kind of problem solving, project managing, logistic. Um, just fearless to talk to anybody about these kind of things. I get excited about what I'm doing, and it comes through. I'm an instant. I mean, they always say how you do things so fast, and that came from the trucking. Is you got to be on your toes, you got to be getting paperwork to them quick, that kind of thing. So my oil field guys are used to not hearing anything for weeks, and when I'm doing something in an hour, if we get an order in the morning for a load of liquid PHPA and pails, that's 832 pails labeled, and we get it before noon, we usually ship that same day. Xanthan, all the different products, PAC, polyanic cellulose, all the different products. I mean, we are all over getting it out as fast as possible. So that really helps them on their side. They can trust us. We've been very consistent with that over the years. And again, it's almost unheard of. Like the oil field is a lot of times you put an order in, you might have to call back and check on, is that going to come? And I hear that all the time. So really dedicated to service and those kind of things. But the pioneer spirit is, uh, I just couldn't take being thumbed or treated terrible, and that was my own fault. Really, it's maybe something I needed to learn and to relax in and realize that maybe they weren't trying to treat me terrible. They were maybe even trying to teach me, but I just was unteachable. And I believe teachability is a skill now. It's something we need to be teaching people how to be teachable. And again, I developed my own ability to read books and understand. And this great education I had at my college, I had chemistry background, I had physics background, I had symbolic logic, deep mathematics, all those kind of things really poured into what I was able to read and understand and listen to engineers or project solve or, that kind of thing. So I was really blessed with an education that led me to the ability to learn and read. I've always been a lifelong reader, and willing to learn. But I guess I just saw my own frailties as this thing I needed to leave behind, because I wasn't going to work for the corporate world. My mom worked for General Tire. My dad worked for General Tire in Akron. And I would listen to my mom be treated so terribly. And I think those were marks in my brain, is I'm not going to be treated that way. And again, I still say I'm not right about that. I'm just saying that it's something I just wasn't going to take. So it's fascinating to me that I've ended up in this place and been able to make a living. I've had my ups and downs. I've had deep challenges. Like there was times that I know my wife did not want to even see my face because I was not going to quit. I just believe not quitting is winning. Again, I have about a 10 things that I say to myself all the time. And it's helped me to keep going because you know why not quitting is winning? Because everybody quits. I've seen people come and go. It's unbelievable. They don't figure out how to keep going. And I just am not going to quit. If I'm onto something, it's going. And I really was leaving behind this family tradition of working for Goodyear for 42 years or General Tire for 37 years and being treated like crap, but somehow having good insurance at the end of the day. None of that interests me, not a thing. I have discovered that the major driving force in my life as a person maybe has pioneered three separate things to take care of my family, to find satisfaction in my own life. But the thing that drives me is freedom. I literally want to be left alone. I do not want to be thumbed. I don't want to be treated with disrespect. Money doesn't even really all that matter to me. I've learned that money is almost worthless in some ways with what's going on with the culture and how we treat our currencies and all those kind of things. I'm realizing that money's not it. It's freedom. And money helps. There's no doubt about it. I'm not complaining about that. But at the same point, freedom is really the thing I'm chasing. And when I chase freedom, I have always found that dollars follow. And if you're genuine and have integrity and come across as authentic, uh, you will absolutely prosper. And I think freedom is the highest goal. I have young people come to me all the time. They want to start a business. And one of the things this is one of the first speeches I give them is chase freedom. Chase the idea that you are self-determining your day and your time, your children, your time with your wife, the amount of work. You need to work hard. The luckiest people in the world show up to work every day. And again, I have my rants that I go on with this kind of stuff, but I encourage every young person to be a pioneer in whatever they want to do, whatever they're calling it. Because I tell you what, they're stuck. They can't buy a home. A starter home in Montana is $800,000. And a lot of these people are working for wages. They've went and got a college education in English lit or psychology or whatever. And even an engineer coming out of Bozeman here doesn't do that great. They have to leave the state. So it's super expensive to live, and they have a family. They want a family. So they're starting to ask, well, what can I do? Well, this pioneer spirit has just basically been stripped from the culture. We've been from kindergarten on been trained in this idea of functional education. It changed in like the 1930s. I want to say is that we turned all education into you're going to end up doing a function for society. That's sick. It takes the creativity and the ability to make something new that maybe has never been seen before or improve on something, be an innovator, right? So training us to be functional and just to aid the society so it functions smoothly, that's nothing for me. And again, I want things to go smoothly and I want to help my community and culture, but I think I have ideas and things I want to act on, and I'm not afraid to do that. So I encourage these young people in all those kind of philosophies. So you're looking at a pioneer. Pioneers, they have vision, they have a rebellious spirit, and I think that I would have never thought of that before until even just telling my own story. Is I was rebellious to the point of, I always tell my wife that I have this philosophy of being kindly difficult. I am hyper kind and courteous to everybody that comes in my sphere. It's very rare that I would get rough if they were getting rough with me, I guess is the best way to say it. But the truth of it is I have this philosophy of being kindly difficult. I've trained myself to smile as I walk through a store and greet people and not be isolated. And it sounds a bit arrogant to what I'm saying, but the point of it is when it comes right down to it, I am gonna stick to where I'm at, and I'll be kind about it, but I'm gonna be difficult. And I know there are people in my life and friends and maybe even family that have wondered what the heck this guy's doing. And I guess I feel strongly that I'm doing it the way I'm supposed to, and I'm never going to doubt that. So there's a point of rebellion in being a pioneer as well. They have vision, they push new boundaries. The word literally comes from a French word, and I don't want to pronounce it like the French would, pioneer or whatever, but basically it's a foot soldier that goes ahead of the army to prepare the way. So they're breaking new ground. They're doing new things. They're the start of every story is the best way to say it. A pioneer is the start of every story. How our country was formed, how heading west, the gold rush, whatever. Even those old ways of thinking of a pioneer are still relevant today. So the idea that a pioneer is pushing new boundaries, laying new foundations for other people to follow behind. And I think we need that more than ever in this culture. So, I just encourage you to, as we go through this process of interviewing people, that in the back of our minds is like, what can I pioneer? How can I pioneer my own life? What creative idea do I have that I want to act on, but I've been afraid or told I can't do it? When I started my ICC licensed freight brokerage back in 1992, March of, I was told by the freight rangers in Missoula, Montana, they were another brokerage, that you'll never be able to do it. You financially can't make it. You don't have no chance. You should just give up now. Literally told to my face at a conference in Utah. And I'm like, I guess I can't make it. I'm just kidding. I didn't receive any of that. I just sent it out the door. It's gone. So I want to encourage people. I want to encourage people with this idea, and I want to promote my colleagues in the oil field and mining. I want to dig deep on how we can maybe restore this to our culture. So I thank you for listening and letting me rant, and just stay tuned. And there's going to be incoming interviews with Encore Energy and Dynamic Fluids and Geo and mining companies, AI experts, data centers. So these are people I've already talked to, and we're going to dig deep and try to figure out this philosophy and how they started, how they're going forward, and where we're going to end up. I think it's a pretty important topic. And again, I'm so glad you joined me today for my first episode, Shot Out of the Cannon. And let's hope we can develop a pioneer mindset.